You know, it's kind of wild to think that back in 17th century Massachusetts, celebrating Christmas wasn't just, like, unpopular.
Yeah.
It was actually illegal.
Yeah.
You could get slapped with a 5 shilling fine for it. Pretty different from today, huh?
Oh, absolutely. That really does put our, modern Christmas blowouts into perspective. So what part of history are we exploring today?
Well, today we're diving into the origins and the evolution of some of the American Christmas traditions we really hold on to.
Okay.
And it's not just going to be a straight timeline. We want to look at the societal stuff, the cultural mixing, even the economics behind how we celebrate now.
Sounds fascinating. Where should we begin?
Let's start with something you might see pretty often if you live near any construction, the topping out ceremony.
Oh, yes, with a little tree on top.
Exactly. Putting an evergreen tree, and often an American flag too, right on the highest point of a new building.
Right. I've seen that. It always feels like, they've hit a big milestone. What's the story there?
Well, this whole idea of putting greenery on new buildings, it goes way, way back, like thousands of years.
Really? How far back?
Think ancient Rome, maybe around 621 BC. When they finished a bridge, they celebrated by tossing human sacrifices into the Tiber River.
Whoa. Okay, that's intense. Definitely not a cute little evergreen.
Not quite. And, in ancient China, they'd smear chicken blood on the main beam of a new building.
Chicken blood? Why?
Well, the thinking was it might appease any gods who might otherwise, demand a human life for the building. There was this widespread belief that new buildings could attract, like, bad spirits.
Ah, okay. So protection.
Exactly. Which is why in medieval Europe, you'd often have a priest or a rabbi come and bless new homes, ships, important buildings, trying to ward off evil.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Seeking blessings, keeping the bad vibes out.
So fast forward a bit to Scandinavia around 700 AD, give or take.
Okay.
And we see something that looks a bit more familiar. Hoisting an evergreen tree to the top of a new building. It often meant, hey, the work's done, let's party.
A signal for the completion party. Got it.
Yeah, and some historians think it might also be linked to older fertility symbols. Those European customs involving young trees, eggs, flowers, grain in building rituals, all wishing for good luck and a prosperous future.
It's amazing how these threads connect, isn't it? The desire for good fortune, protection.
Totally. And it gets richer. You have the Teutonic tribes possibly doing rituals to, like, appease tree spirits after cutting down timber.
Appeasing tree spirits.
Right. And then, of course, the German Black Forest tradition of using a Christmas tree for the nativity. So this simple construction thing, it's actually packed with echoes of beliefs about prosperity, protection, respect for nature.
So that reverence for trees just kept evolving and weaving into different beliefs over centuries.
Precisely. Now let's talk about the American flag in that topping out ceremony.
Right, because it's often the tree and the flag now.
Exactly. We first see flags used really prominently when they were finishing the Brooklyn Bridge. But it became more of a standard thing by the late 1920s, especially with ironworkers draping flags on their work.
So the flag wasn't always part of the tree tradition from the get-go.
No, it seems like the flag part has its own more specific history. There's this really interesting theory that its use ramped up partly as a reaction to something called the American Plan around 1919.
The American Plan, what was that?
It was basically a big push after World War I, an anti-union movement trying to promote open shops and weaken organized labor.
So putting up the flag could have been like a statement beyond just finishing the building.
That's the idea. In that post-war climate, with a lot of anti-labor feelings flying around, the American Plan was trying to push unions back. So for ironworkers, hoisting the flag could have been a really visible way to say, hey, we're patriotic Americans, asserting their loyalty while still standing up for workers' rights.
Wow, that adds a whole layer of meaning I never would have guessed.
Right. It shows how even everyday things can have these hidden depths. And, going back to the trees for a sec, there's even a Viking connection.
Vikings? Seriously?
Yep. After a successful raid, Viking leaders would build these huge mead halls. And when they were done, they'd stick an evergreen tree on the roofline to celebrate their success.
Okay, so celebrating achievement. From Viking halls to modern skyscrapers, that little tree has traveled.
It really has. And Scandinavian mythology adds another piece. They believed humans came from trees and our spirits went back to them when we died.
So trees had spirits.
Yeah, each tree had its own essence. So before they'd cut one down for a house, they had rituals. They'd address the forest, show respect, ask permission, basically.
Wow.
And once the house was built, they'd put a leafy branch up high, partly to, thank or appease the spirit of the tree they used, and also to ensure the new home would be fertile, prosperous.
A way of staying in harmony with nature, acknowledging what they took.
You got it. And over time, this belief in individual tree spirits kind of morphed into worshiping a single forest god. The branches on the roof became less about appeasement and more about asking for blessings, fertility for the land, the family.
Okay.
Eventually, people started adding ribbons, colored paper, painted eggs, flowers, symbols of life. And this whole practice, it came to the U.S. with immigrants, got mixed into things like barn raisings and housewarmings.
Right.
Plus, there was this carpenter's tradition of nailing a free tree branch to the main beam again, hoping to attract good wood spirits for luck. You might even find old branches like that tucked away in attics today.
That's incredible. These ancient ideas just subtly surviving in plain sight.
It really is. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about this idea of invented traditions when it comes to Christmas.
Invented traditions. That sounds contradictory. What do you mean?
Well, it's a concept from the historian Eric Hobsbawm. He talked about how societies often create or really emphasize certain practices that feel old and traditional, but are actually pretty recent inventions, especially during times of big social change. And the argument is that a lot of what we think of as traditional Christmas really came together in the last, say, 200 years.
So the whole Victorian Christmas vibe, that's not actually ancient history.
Not in its complete modern package, no. Hobsbawm pointed out three main types of these invented traditions. Some are about creating social unity, bringing people together.
Yeah.
Others are about making authority seem legitimate. And the third type is about socialization, teaching people certain beliefs and values.
And Christmas fits into this.
Yeah, the argument is that modern Christmas kind of does all three. It helped bring people together in new ways. When society was changing fast, it reinforced certain social norms. And it definitely taught values, especially around family, charity, that kind of thing.
Okay, I see.
And this invention process, it involves picking and choosing bits of the past, emphasizing some things, downplaying others, to create this feeling of, smooth continuity. But invented doesn't mean fake or worthless, just constructed.
Right, it refers to how it was put together. So when did Christmas even become December 25th? Was that always the date?
Good question. The Bible actually gives very few clues about Jesus' birth date. And the earliest Christians, they didn't really make a big deal out of celebrating his birthday like we do.
Huh. So what was Christmas like before this modern invention?
Well, pre-modern Christmas was often way more rowdy and public. Think street festivals, lots of drinking.
Okay.
Things like mumming people, dressing up in costumes, going door to door, performing little plays, sometimes kind of unruly, demanding food or money. It could get pretty chaotic, even spill over into social protests sometimes.
So less silent night, more public party that could get out of hand.
Kind of a huge contrast to the cozy, family-focused image we have now.
Definitely.
So that shift towards a quieter, more domestic Christmas was partly pushed by the upper classes. They wanted to, tame the holiday, make it safer, more orderly. All that public revelry could feel threatening to the social order.
Right, crowd control, basically.
And this is where figures like Santa Claus start to take on a new meaning. Some historians suggest that this image of the kind, gift-giving Santa, helped promote a more harmonious picture of society, maybe smoothing over the relationship between rich and poor.
Interesting. Santa as a social mediator, that's a different way to look at him.
It's one interpretation, yeah. And if you look at the timeline for our modern Christmas staples in the U.S., you see how recent they are.
Like what?
Well, Santa Claus really blew up after a visit from St. Nicholas, "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," was published in 1822.
Okay, early 19th century.
Right. And giving gifts at Christmas instead of on New Year's Day, that became the norm, mostly in the 1820s and 30s.
Ah, so gift-giving shifted holidays.
Yep. Christmas trees started getting trendy in American homes around then, too. And Christmas wasn't even a federal holiday in the U.S. until 1870.
1870, wow, that's much later than I would have guessed.
So that whole 19th century period saw this massive effort to, Christianize Christmas more explicitly, make it centered on the home and family, domesticate it, and, yes, commercialize it.
And the commercial side wasn't resisted.
Not entirely. Even some religious groups saw the commercial aspects as a way to, spread the holiday's influence, and shifting gift-giving from New Year's to Christmas. Some say it was to put more focus on the religious aspect. Others say it was just simpler to combine the winter celebrations. Either way, gifts became central.
Fueling industries, shops.
Exactly. So modern Christmas really fits that invented tradition idea Hobsbawm talked about. It creates this feeling of deep historical roots.
When it's actually more of a blend.
Precisely. It's a mix of ancient pagan stuff,
Hmm.
the greenery, lights, feasts, Christian beliefs, and these newer secular elements focused on home, family, and commerce.
And that mix is probably why we still argue about it today, right?
Absolutely. All the debates about paganism, commercialism, multiculturalism, secularism, the war on Christmas, they bubble up because the holiday itself pulls from so many different sources. Its boundaries are inherently blurry.
Yeah, different people emphasize different parts of its history or meaning. It's bound to cause friction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's zoom in on one particular piece of culture that had a huge impact. Charles Dickens's A Christmas Carol.
Ah, yes, a total classic. That must have shaped things quite a bit.
Oh, massively. It came out in 1843, right in the middle of this period when Christmas was being redefined.
Perfect timing.
Yeah, and it became this foundational text for our modern ideas about Christmas, especially the importance of family, community, charity, redemption. Those images of warm, happy families and communities coming together. Dickens really cemented those.
It's hard to picture Christmas without Scrooge, Tiny Tim, the whole atmosphere he created.
Totally. And the novella itself, it reflected the changing times, the growing commercial world, but it also tapped into those older festive ideas from pagan and early Christian times. And its popularity just exploded, never really stopped. Countless adaptations, endless discussion.
It basically became part of the Christmas ritual itself.
Exactly. You could think of Christmas as a ritual, and Dickens heavily influenced the content of that ritual, what it's supposed to be about. Family, generosity, connection. Concepts like social capital, the value you get from relationships and networks and restorative nostalgia, that longing for an idealized home or past, are super relevant here.
How does the story show that social capital idea?
Well, look at the Cratchits. Dickens keeps reminding us how poor they are, materially worn clothes, meager dinner.
Right.
But he contrasts that constantly with how rich they are emotionally. Their love, their unity that's presented as way more valuable than money. Even Peter Cratchit, wearing his dad's hand-me-down shirt collar, becomes this symbol of family connection.
So emotional wealth over material wealth.
Definitely. And the story frames Christmas as the time to build and repair those social connections. Scrooge's whole transformation is about learning to invest in social capital.
How so?
By doing nice things, sure, sending the turkey, raising Bob's salary, but also just by showing up, connecting with people, accepting his nephew's dinner invitation, being part of the community. His journey with the ghosts is like this classic three-stage ritual. Separation from the community, this liminal phase where he learns, and then reintegration once he gets the importance of reciprocity and connection.
So Dickens basically gave us a blueprint for the meaning of modern Christmas.
He gave us a very, very influential one. And you see its fingerprints all over other Christmas stories, like Frank Capra's It's a Wonderful Life.
Oh, another cornerstone. How does that connect?
Well, It's a Wonderful Life pounds that same drum family and community or everything. It uses that idea of a home base, that core of belonging and support. George Bailey's whole story is about reciprocity, right? How all the good he put out into the community comes back to save him.
Right, when everyone chips in to help him.
Exactly. And the film sets up that stark contrast.
Yeah.
George, who represents community spirit, versus Mr. Potter, who's just pure profit motive, pure individualism.
The ultimate grumpy old man.
Totally. And think about the nostalgia people feel watching that movie now. There's often this longing for that kind of tight-knit, supportive community it depicts, whether it was ever quite real or not.
Yeah, it feels like a lost ideal sometimes.
And even Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas, it follows a similar pattern.
The Grinch.
Think about it. The Grinch is the ultimate outsider, just like Scrooge was. And his journey is also about realizing the importance of community, of fellowship. His heart grows 3 sizes when he hears the Who's singing together despite having no presents.
Okay, and I need the parallel, community over stuff.
Right. And when he brings the toys back, you could see that as his investment in social capital, his way of asking for acceptance, which he gets. So both stories end with the outsider being welcomed into this pretty harmonious community.
It's amazing how that basic structure repeats. Transformation, community, belonging.
And it doesn't stop there. Think about modern Christmas advertising.
That? Really?
Yeah, more and more, especially in recent years. Christmas commercials aren't just selling stuff, they're telling these little stories. And guess what the stories are often about? Let me guess. Community. Nostalgia. Bingo. They tap right into that nostalgia for community, reinforcing the same ideals we saw in Dickens. Remember, Christmas and commerce got tangled up back in the 19th century, with industrial growth and gift-giving becoming central.
Right.
Advertising has changed over time, shifting from just listing product features to creating these like little ritual scripts. But for Christmas ads, they mostly just reuse the script Dickens wrote.
Huh. Examples.
Think about the commercials from 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic lockdowns. So many of them leaned hard into restorative nostalgia. They were all about remembering past gatherings, the importance of connection, precisely because people felt so isolated.
Right, I remember those. Lots of families connecting over video calls, neighbors helping each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the underlying message often links social capital being part of the group with economic capital, buying the right gifts, the signs of recognition that show you belong or care. Ads from Waitrose, Amazon, Sainsbury's, Aldi Ireland that year, they all hit themes of community support, fighting loneliness, just being together.
So even the ads are basically retelling a Christmas carol in 60 seconds.
In a way, yeah. They're building on that foundation, constantly reinforcing the centrality of family and community to the Christmas ideal.
That's quite something. Okay, so we've talked about ancient roots, invented traditions, Dickens. What about the influence of specific immigrant groups? I know German immigrants are often mentioned.
Oh, absolutely crucial. People know about the Christmas tree, Tannenbaum, and all that.
Right.
But their influence was much broader. The Santa Claus figure we recognize today owes a lot to German traditions.
Yeah.
A huge amount of our classic Christmas music has German roots. And for those German immigrants coming to the U.S., especially in the 18th and 19th centuries, Christmas became super important. It was a way to hold on to their cultural identity. Remember, Germany as one country didn't really exist for much of that time. People came from Bavaria, Prussia, Saxony.
Right, different regions.
So Christmas was this shared cultural thing that helped unify these diverse German-speaking groups in America, helping them maintain their heritage, while also figuring out how to fit into American society. Philadelphia is a great place to see this happening.
Lots of German heritage there.
Exactly. And it's interesting, back in the German lands, Christmas traditions sometimes played a role in managing, like social or economic stuff within a town. But in the U.S., the focus shifted much more towards the private family sphere.
More about the home.
Yeah, that German concept of Weihnachtsstimmung. It's hard to translate perfectly, but it's that cozy, warm Christmas atmosphere. It's all about family bonds, nostalgia, that feeling of warmth inside while it's cold and snowy outside.
I think I know that feeling.
And what's fascinating is how quickly German Americans adopted the American Santa Claus figure. You'd see him popping up in German language newspaper ads in Philly.
Even more than St. Nicholas.
Often, yeah.
Ew.
It was this visible sign of blending German and American identities. Businesses were smart. They used both German symbols and American ones, like Santa, in their ads to appeal to their community.
Bridging the cultures.
Right. And music was huge. They kept singing their traditional German carols, but they also jumped on new technology like the gramophone to share Christmas music more widely.
Interesting.
And, drinking alcohol was part of traditional German Christmas celebrations. But the German language papers in Philly also started reflecting the growing American temperance movement. So you see this negotiation happening, holding on to old customs while navigating new social pressures.
Adapting.
Totally. You even see elves, which come from North Germanic folklore, showing up in German-American Christmas ads. It's all part of this amazing cultural mix. Prohibition later on, of course, impacted those community gatherings too.
So it really sounds like German immigrants and their kids were major players in crafting the American Christmas we celebrate today, mixing and matching traditions.
Absolutely. They didn't just bring things over. They actively blended their heritage with what was emerging in America, creating something new that really resonated.
Wow. So pulling this all together then, it seems like American Christmas, which feels so timeless, is actually this incredible patchwork quilt.
That's a great way to put it.
You've got threads from ancient pagan rituals, pieces invented relatively recently in the last couple of centuries, huge sections influenced by narratives like A Christmas Carol, and vibrant patterns added by groups like German immigrants.
Exactly. It's a living tradition, constantly woven and rewoven. Yeah. And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Given that so much of what we do at Christmas has been actively shaped and, well, invented over time.
Yeah.
How might our celebrations keep changing? What new traditions might pop up as our society's values shift, as global cultures mix even more, as technology changes how we connect?
And what parts of today's Christmas might fade away?
Right. What might future generations think is essential to Christmas? It's fascinating to think about how this ongoing history will continue to unfold.
Definitely a thought-provoking place to leave it. It really underscores that history isn't just about the past. It's actively shaping our present and future. Thanks for this amazing deep dive.
My pleasure. And to all of you listening, maybe take a moment this holiday season to look at your own traditions. Where do they come from? I encourage you to dig a little deeper into the rich, complex history of Christmas. You might be really surprised by the stories you uncover.